Myles Garrett just broke weeks of silence, and what he said is going to shatter the hearts of every Cleveland Browns fan who still believed this franchise could turn things around. This wasn't a typical post-game interview. This wasn't corporate athlete speak. This was raw, emotional, and devastatingly honest. Garrett, the two-time Defensive Player of the Year who's carried this team on his back for 8 years, stood in front of cameras with tears in his eyes and delivered a warning so brutal, so final, that it's being called the most heartbreaking moment in modern Cleveland sports history. He didn't just criticize the organization. He didn't just express frustration. He told Browns fans to stop believing, to stop hoping, to stop wasting their loyalty on a franchise that will never respect it. And the specific loss that triggered this breakdown, the behind-the-scenes disaster that happened in the locker room afterward, and the conversation Garrett had with ownership that pushed him over the edge, all of it is about to be exposed. What you're about to hear is the beginning of the end for Myles Garrett in Cleveland. February 16, 2026. The Cleveland Browns just suffered one of the most humiliating defeats in franchise history, and the way it happened, the circumstances surrounding it, and what occurred in the locker room after the final whistle created the perfect storm that finally broke Myles Garrett's silence. This wasn't a regular season game. This was a late-season matchup that had massive playoff implications, and the Browns collapsed in spectacular fashion, losing by 32 points to a division rival in a game where the defense gave up over 500 yards and the offense couldn't score a single touchdown. But the loss itself isn't what matters. It's what happened after the game, in that locker room, in the parking lot, and eventually in front of cameras that changed everything. Myles Garrett, who has been the face of this franchise since being drafted first overall in 2017, who has won Defensive Player of the Year twice, who has given everything he has to Cleveland through coaching changes and front office disasters and endless losing, finally reached his breaking point. And when he spoke, when he finally let the words come out that he's been holding back for years, it was one of the most powerful and heartbreaking moments in NFL history. The game itself was a disaster from the opening kickoff. The Browns' defense, which has been Garrett's unit, the one thing this team could consistently count on, got shredded. The opposing offense ran the ball at will. The quarterback had all day to throw. Receivers were running wide open. And Garrett, despite recording 2 sacks, couldn't single-handedly stop what was happening. On the offensive side, it was even worse. Deshaun Watson, who's still technically the starting quarterback despite all the controversy and settlement negotiations, looked completely lost. He threw 3 interceptions, he fumbled twice, he couldn't complete passes more than 10 yards downfield, and by the fourth quarter, the home crowd at First Energy Stadium was booing so loudly that you couldn't hear the play calls. When the final whistle blew and the scoreboard showed a 32-point defeat, the players walked off the field in silence. Some went straight to the locker room. Others stood on the sideline staring at the ground. And Garrett, the captain, the leader, the guy who's supposed to rally everyone, just stood at midfield for nearly 5 minutes, not moving, not talking to anyone, just staring at nothing. What happened next in the locker room is what finally pushed Garrett over the edge, according to sources who were present. The standard post-game routine started with head coach Todd Monken addressing the team. Monken tried to deliver a message about staying together, learning from mistakes, and preparing for next week, but according to sources, several players weren't even paying attention. Some were on their phones, others were getting undressed and heading to the showers before Monken finished talking. The lack of respect, the lack of accountability, the sense that nobody cared anymore, it was all on display. And when Monken finished his speech and left the locker room, that's when things got ugly. According to sources, a heated argument broke out between offensive and defensive players. Defensive players were blaming the offense for putting them in impossible situations all season. Offensive players were blaming the defense for not making stops when it mattered. Voices were raised, there was shoving, and at one point, according to sources, Deshaun Watson tried to speak up and defend himself, but multiple players told him to shut up, that he lost the right to talk after the performance he just had. Myles Garrett, who was sitting in his locker with his head down, finally stood up and tried to calm everyone down. But instead of calming down, the argument escalated even further when one player allegedly said something to the effect of, "Why are we even trying? This organization doesn't care about winning. Ownership doesn't care. The front office doesn't care. We're just here to collect checks and lose." And according to sources, sources, that's when Garrett snapped. He didn't yell, he didn't scream, he just said quietly, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're right, this place is broken, and it's never getting fixed." The room went silent. Players who were arguing stopped mid-sentence. Everyone turned to look at Garrett, and he just walked out. What happened over the next few hours is what led to the emotional press conference that's now going viral across every sports platform in the world. Garrett left the stadium, drove to a nearby park, and sat in his car for over an hour. According to sources close to him, he called his family, his agent, and several former teammates who left Cleveland, asking for advice, asking if he was crazy for feeling the way he felt. And they all told him the same thing, that what he's feeling is valid, that he's given everything to Cleveland and gotten nothing back, and that he needs to do what's best for himself, even if it means leaving. When Garrett finally returned to the Browns facility later that evening, he was met by team officials who wanted to have a conversation about the locker room incident and the state of the team. According to sources, Garrett met with Andrew Berry, the general manager, and Jimmy Haslam, the owner, in Haslam's office. The meeting was supposed to be about addressing the team's dysfunction and figuring out how to fix it, but according to sources, it quickly turned into something else entirely. Garrett reportedly asked Haslam directly, "Do you actually want to win, or do you just want to own a team?" Haslam, according to sources, was taken aback by the question and tried to explain all the moves the organization has made, all the money spent, all the coaches hired. But Garrett cut him off and said, "You've been the owner for 14 years. 14 years, and we've made the playoffs twice. You gave Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed when everyone knew it was a disaster. You fire coaches every 2 years. You meddle in football decisions you don't understand. So I'm asking again, do you want to win, or is this just a hobby for you?" According to sources, Haslam didn't have a good answer. He tried to defend his track record, but Garrett wasn't interested in hearing it. The meeting ended with Garrett walking out and heading straight to the team's media room, where he requested to do an unscheduled press conference. The footage of that press conference is now being played on every sports network and shared millions of times across social media because of how raw and emotional it was. Garrett sat at the podium, still in his Browns hoodie, with red eyes that suggested he'd been crying. The reporters in the room knew something was off. Normally, Garrett is composed, professional, gives standard answers, but this time, when the first question came, which was simply, "Myles, how are you feeling after today's loss?" Garrett paused for what felt like forever, took a deep breath, and then started talking. "I'm tired," he said. "I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of being on a team that doesn't know how to win. I'm tired of giving everything I have and watching this organization make the same mistakes over and over again." The room went completely silent. Reporters stopped typing, cameras zoomed in, and Garrett kept going. "I came to Cleveland in 2017. I was 21 years old. I believed in this place. I believed we could build something special. And for 8 years, I've worked harder than I've ever worked in my life. 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, Pro Bowls, All-Pro selections. I've done everything I can do as a player, but it's not enough. It's never enough, because this organization doesn't know how to support their players. They don't know how to build a winner, and I'm done pretending like it's going to get better." One reporter asked Garrett if he was saying he wants to leave Cleveland. Garrett's response is what's being replayed over and over on social media. "I'm saying that I love Cleveland. I love the fans. They deserve so much better than what they've gotten. But I can't keep sacrificing my career, my prime years, waiting for this organization to figure it out. I've got maybe 3 or 4 more elite years left, and I need to be somewhere that values winning as much as I do." Then came the moment that's being called the most heartbreaking part of the entire press conference. A reporter asked Garrett what message he has for Browns fans who have supported him and the team through all the losing.
Garrett's eyes welled up. He looked down at the table. He was silent for almost 10 seconds, which felt like an eternity on live television. And then he looked up at the cameras and said, with his voice cracking, "I wish I could tell you it's going to get better. I wish I could tell you that next year will be different, but I can't, because I don't believe it anymore. I used to believe it. I used to think if we just worked harder, if we just stayed together, if we just trusted the process, we'd turn it around. But it's been 8 years of my life, and we're worse now than when I got here. So my message to Browns fans is stop waiting for this team to care about you. Stop putting your faith in an organization that doesn't deserve it. You're the best fans in sports. You show up every week, even when we're losing. You support us through all the chaos, and you deserve ownership and management that cares about winning as much as you do. But you don't have that, and I'm not sure you ever will, as long as things stay the way they are." The press conference ended shortly after that because Garrett couldn't continue. He thanked everyone, got up, and walked out while wiping his eyes. The footage of him walking out, with his shoulders slumped and his head down, is one of the most shared clips in sports media right now. The reaction to Garrett's press conference has been absolutely massive across the sports world. Former players have been calling it one of the most honest and brave moments they've ever seen from an active athlete. Current players from other teams have been posting messages of support on social media. Browns fans have been flooding message boards and social media with messages saying they don't blame Garrett, that he's right, that the organization has failed him. National media members are calling it a watershed moment, the breaking point where a franchise player finally said publicly what everyone's been thinking privately for years. But there's also been criticism. Some people are saying Garrett should have kept this private, that airing frustrations publicly damages the team and makes it harder to recruit free agents or coaches. Others are questioning his leadership, saying that a captain doesn't abandon his teammates no matter how bad things get. But the overwhelming majority of the reaction has been supportive of Garrett and critical of the Browns organization. The hashtag #FreeMyles has been trending nationally for over 12 hours. Mock trade scenarios are being posted everywhere, showing what kind of return the Browns could get if they trade Garrett to a contender. And NFL insiders are reporting that multiple teams have already reached out to Cleveland inquiring about Garrett's availability.
The Cleveland Browns organization has been in crisis mode since the press conference. According to sources, Jimmy Haslam is furious that Garrett went public with his frustrations. Haslam reportedly feels betrayed, believing that Garrett should have come to him privately instead of embarrassing the organization in front of the entire world. Andrew Berry is said to be devastated because he's built a strong relationship with Garrett over the years and doesn't want to lose him. Todd Monken is trying to figure out how to coach a team where the best player just told the world he doesn't believe they can win, and the rest of the locker room is split between players who agree with everything Garrett said and players who think he crossed a line by going public. The organization has not issued any official statement yet, beyond a generic comment about respecting Garrett's passion and commitment to winning. But according to sources, behind the scenes, the Browns are having serious discussions about whether to trade Garrett before the situation gets even worse. The problem is that trading Garrett would be admitting organizational failure in the most public way possible. It would confirm everything Garrett said in his press conference. It would devastate the fan base even further. But keeping Garrett when he's clearly unhappy and checked out mentally could be even worse because it creates a toxic environment that poisons the entire roster. As of right now, February 16, 2026, Myles Garrett is still technically a member of the Cleveland Browns. But after what he said in that press conference, after the emotion he showed, after the honesty he delivered, it's hard to imagine him wearing that uniform much longer. Whether he gets traded in the coming weeks, whether he forces his way out through public pressure, or whether the Browns somehow convince him to stay, this moment has fundamentally changed his relationship with the franchise and with the city of Cleveland. The silence has been broken, the truth has been spoken, and there's no going back. Myles Garrett broke his silence and delivered the most emotional and honest warning in Cleveland sports history, telling fans to stop believing in a franchise that doesn't deserve their loyalty. The press conference revealed a player who's completely broken by 8 years of dysfunction, and the fallout could result in the Browns losing the best defensive player in football. Whether Garrett stays or goes, this moment will be remembered as the breaking point where everything changed.